Jupiter Broadcasting presents this program in stereo, where available. This episode brought to you by the extreme folks over at GoDaddy.com.
This week on the Linux Action Show, Google stepped back into the line of fire this week when they announced they have no plans to open source Honeycomb anytime soon. Then we bring on Kevin Miller, the CEO of RevRev, and find out why Linux is so critical to his business. Plus so much more. Oh, this week on the Linux Action Show! And welcome to the Linux Action Show, Season 16. What is that in, like, Spanish?
Oh, Sistino. I don't know, man. Don't
How about French?
Sixtarillo.
62.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea. Episode 2. My name is Brian, and I kid you not, I am in the studio today. Next to me is Chris.
Hey there, Brian. Check out Crashatu's runs a Linux this week. He hooked me up on Twitter, and he said, I have got a Aussie supercomputer with 544 CPUs and 0.5 terabytes of RAM. And he sent that along to me, and that's pretty badass. We've got a... That means
500 gigs of RAM?
500 gigs of RAM, yeah. And he's a Linux Action Show viewer.
I'm going to be straight with you. I don't have 500 gigs of RAM.
No, we got to contact this guy. Maybe he can encode some of our episodes for us. Save us some time.
You know what? When you guys do your RAM upgrades, we'll take your old RAM.
Just send it our way.
Yeah.
Well, maybe only just a few hundred
We
gigs.
don't mind hand-me-downs.
You want like a couple hundred gigs of memory?
We'll take sloppy seconds RAM. Absolutely.
Hey, you know, we got quite a show planned today. Coming up later, we got an interview with Kevin Miller, the CEO of RevRev. And
RevRev, the guys that make LiveCode, which is pretty cool.
And then also, which is really neat, is last week we covered the B3 Linux home server.
Which was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and the guys said we're going to do a little giveaway because, well, you know what? It's a Linux product, and this is a Linux audience, so it's the perfect place to give it away. So here is the challenge. It's actually really easy to win one of these, so I wanted to put this in at the top of the show. Email these guys and tell them which distribution the B3 runs. And email them to giveaway@excito.com, and that's EXCITO.com.
So easy. To start with, I think we mentioned it in the last episode.
Yes, we did.
And I think it's on their website.
Wait, don't tell them that,
in like
Brian.
5 places.
So anyways, I really like this little box. So and they said they'd give one away to our audience. So definitely email them, giveaway@EXCTI, or sorry, let me get this right, EXCITO.com.
Excito!
Yeah. So email them and get yourself a B3 because they are awesome.
I'm going to be clear. Last week, I mentioned that I love their name. I still love their name.
Yeah.
1 week later, it has not gotten old.
It's still exciting, right?
I thought maybe having a company named Excito would get old after a week. No, it's more awesome a week later.
It'd be like naming your company Spider-Man. It
Seriously.
just never gets old.
It never does.
You know what else never gets old?
Could you do that? Could we change the name of Jupiter Broadcasting to just Spider-Man? I don't know.
I was thinking of changing it to Danica Kirkpatrick because she seems to never get old, and like somehow somebody at GoDaddy.com is watching after us. There she is on Sunday morning on GoDaddy's homepage. Just perfect for this little plug we do here for GoDaddy.
Danica.
And you know,
you make me want to buy domain names.
I know, right? I want that shirt. Now here's the thing. Off. What? Nothing.
What?
Nothing.
Da-doing.
Last week we mentioned if you use the code Linux.
I don't know what that noise was. I said da-doing. I don't even know what that means.
It sounds
really
like something not in its prime condition because it should be more of a
something didn't work right. Yeah.
Da-doing.
How about we talk about GoDaddy for a second?
Okay. So last week we mentioned the code LinuxCO1, and that'll get you a .co domain for $7.99, cheaper than the $11.99 they have on their site. But that expires on the 30th. So if you're listening or watching this after the 30th,
Dude, you only got like 2 or 3 days to do this.
I know. It's because I think they make like no money when they do it that way. So they only do it for a limited time.
Get people into it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after that, you can use the code Linux to save 10%, or Linux 20 to save 20% on hosting.
Nice.
You know what? I did the count. I think I have 8 GoDaddy hosted servers now.
8 of them?
8 of them.
My God,
and
man.
I love them. So I recommend the Linux 20 if you're going to get hosting because that's the way to go.
Dude, seriously. So if you're saving, think about this for a second. You've got 8. If you use Linux 20 on all of them, that's 20%. You need 2 more. 1 of them will be free. 2 of them will be free. 2 of them will be free.
Dude, you're right.
So you've got 8. Get 2 more. They're free.
The chances are I will, dude.
They're free.
That's a very good chance that
That's
will
math
happen.
right there.
Now, this week, kind of like the big thing that we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and we were kind of like, well, this is interesting, but let's wait and see what happens. But the Amazon App Store for Android has officially released. This was honestly kind of a weird build-up, but it's here now.
We've been talking about it for a year?
I don't remember the first time we
mentioned
heard about
it a long time ago.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. Now, I've got kind of a rickety setup here of VNC into my Android phone if you're watching the video version, but I thought I'd give you a little demonstration of the Amazon App Store because it, I think, is really well done. It's a little hokey how you have to get it at this point, but their claim to fame right now is every day they're featuring a major app for free. Yesterday it was SwiftKey, which is a keyboard I've recommended before.
Yep.
It was before that. It was the Angry Birds game. I mean, they're really good apps that they're putting out there for free. They're not just like no-name apps, which is, I guess, is part of the deal that they have with developers. They can set any price they want. Now I'll walk you through it. So here's an app that I kind of want. It's called Seek Droid, and it lets you locate your Android if you lose it. It looks a lot like the regular Amazon shopping experience. You know, you've got your product reviews down here like you have on any Amazon product, and then you go down here and you've got what other customers have bought, things like that, and you've got the one-click buy just like you do with other Amazon stuff, and there you go. Now with a push of one button, I'm downloading. And
so fantastic.
What I don't like about this is you can't keep shopping. Like, see, if I go about and I start browsing the Amazon App Store, immediately once the app is done downloading, it takes me away because it does the manual install process. So I can't keep browsing and just keep adding apps like I do in the Google Marketplace. I buy an app and then I just keep going.
Yeah.
This breaks that process and I have to stop. I have to go
install.
through it.
But that's fine.
You know,
I mean,
it's not a big deal, dude.
Usually you're only installing one thing at a time anyway, so it's not that big a deal.
It's
it would
really
be
not.
cool if it could queue them up, but I'll survive. And honestly, what gets me excited about this is now we can finally get an app store, a good, unified, consistent app store on all of those tablets out there with no carriers attached to them. Like all the Arcos devices. Those Arcos tablets are great.
Yes.
They're great little tablets. I haven't bought one.
But they don't have the Google stamp of approval, so they can't get the Google Marketplace.
So now I can get a nice little tablet that's Wi-Fi only with no carrier, or an unlocked tablet that I can use for any carrier. Put the Amazon App Store on it. Get all the apps I want. I love it.
I suspect that you're going to start seeing phones ship with this Amazon App Store on there as their default app store. You know, it supports doing all the updates, but of course, in order to update any of your applications or run them that you've bought from the Amazon App Store, you have to keep the Amazon app installed.
Yep. Oh, come on. That's fine.
It's the DRM check-in thing.
It's the same thing with the Google App Store.
It's just
in order to make the marketplace work, you have to have a marketplace.
Yeah, they're actually using, I think, maybe even the same technology or a similar technology that Google just introduced for developers. So interesting little development. It does seem like it would be the perfect first step for Amazon to release their own tablet that came with the Kindle bookstore on there, came with maybe the video
Android
streaming
marketplace. Basically, they'd be co-opting Android.
Yeah, exactly.
I kind of would get behind that.
The other thing that's kind of nice about it is they have a typical Amazon browsing experience on Amazon's website for all the apps. So you can search for apps, you can add it to a buy later, you can buy them right here. And then they will, once you launch the app on your phone, they'll automatically download and install. So it's a pretty slick experience, and they're definitely going in it at full steam. And then the last thing that's kind of a differentiator for them is they're doing more screening for applications. They're not just submitting everything to the App Store.
Right.
So there's not a lot of rip-off games. Supposedly there's not the bogus apps. They kind of outline what they screen and check before they submit an app to the App Store.
It's not that bad. I've been kind of looking into it a little bit. And if you're worried at all about Amazon really cracking down and being like Apple, where they're kind of draconian about their really detailed submission policies, it's not that bad. Basically, they're just trying to make sure you're not submitting a bunch of hokey apps and you're not submitting a bunch of apps that maybe steal privacy information.
Right.
Like that's the only thing that they really seem to be hardcore on.
So that's pretty neat. I'm looking forward to checking it out. And the other thing I'm kicking around is I'm monitoring the price differences between Amazon's and the Google market. And right now, Amazon does have cheaper prices on a lot of the apps. Not anything major, because we're talking pennies, right?
Right.
But supposedly there are arrangements with the developers. They still get some sort of fair.
Yes.
We'll see as that comes out.
Yeah, I think it's how it works on the Kindle side as well. I think if you put in a Kindle app or book, you basically get a percentage.
You can set like a minimum price maybe or something.
Yeah, it's something along those lines.
It's like a traditional store where the seller can set the price of the goods in their store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like it.
So that's one of the things to check out. That's the Amazon App Store, and I'll have a link to that in the show notes, as well as a link for a bunch of other picks that I've done over the last couple of years. So if you've just got yourself a new Android phone, head over to the show notes.
That's the way to go. That's the place. And tell all your friends to check that link out, because that's the link with the power.
Yeah.
Right there. That's power link.
And thanks to Majo in the chat room for keeping that list updated. All right, B-Man.
Yeah.
Let's do the news.
Okay. What's new in the news this week?
All right, Brian. Our top story on the news docket for this week. Google takes a dump on open source developers.
Oh, Google did something that made us angry. Let's talk about this for a minute.
Now, I say that a little tongue-in-cheek. We're going to try to cover both sides of this story, but you've probably heard the big story from Google and the Android world this week is...
It just hit me that you said took a dump. I wasn't really expecting that. I knew we were going to lead with the Google story. I didn't think that was the headline. You go ahead and talk for a minute about that.
You gonna recoup?
I gotta pull myself together.
So basically, people came to Google and said, "Where's the Honeycomb source code?" Android, if you remember, especially at Google I/O last year, Andy Rubenstein went up on stage and he made a really big production about how important and how much of a priority open source Android is to them.
Yeah.
So everyone has noticed that you've got the Zoom on the market now, and obviously Honeycomb has been in development for a long time before that Zoom even hit the market.
And
so
Honeycomb is shipping.
Honeycomb is
out there on devices,
and we got the Zoom shipping. You've got more devices on the way, and we still don't have source code released to the open source community.
Right. So people can't build their own version of Honeycomb. They can't build their Google Android 3.0. Right. You can't do it.
Now here's Google's statement on the matter, and here's what it kind of sounds like. I'll read their statement first, and then we'll kind of go further. Android 3.0 Honeycomb was designed from the ground up for devices with larger screen sizes and improves on Android's favorites such as widgets, multitasking, browsing, notifications, and customization. While we're excited to offer these new features to the Android tablets, we have more work to be done before we can deliver it to other devices and types, including phones. Until then, we've decided not to release Honeycomb to open source. We're committed to providing Android as an open platform across many types of devices, and we'll publish the source code as soon as it's ready. So, I think the general reaction from the community on the most side has been, well, Google is just waiting until the product is right to release it to open source communities.
Yep, and that is totally valid. It's okay if you're the owner and developer of the project to wait until you feel a certain milestone has been hit to release the source code. That's okay. Yeah. That's your prerogative. However, if Google is really going to go out there and tout how important the open source methodology and the processes involved in open source and the benefits therein are to Android, and then turn around and say, you know what, we are shipping Honeycomb. We are shipping Android 3.0, but we want to wait until a later version of Android. We're going to skip releasing the source code to this version and release it for another version down the road. That is Google saying two things. The first and most important of which being that the open source methodology is not important to Android's development. They don't consider it important to Android's development, and they are not terribly concerned about people being able to use Android however they want. Right. That is not a priority or an interest to them.
Wouldn't a company who's focused on open source and integrating open source methodology into their product, wouldn't you leverage the open source community for exactly this problem? Yep. It's not quite ready for all devices. There's a wide hardware range out there we want to support. Well, get it out there to the community. Accept the patches you're interested in to make your product better.
You don't have to accept them all. Hell, you don't have to accept any of them, but maybe there will be some good ones.
Right.
If there are, you can accept them. If there aren't, hell, if you don't even have the time to look at patches, don't look at them. But let people experiment. Let people port.
Let me wipe this thing down. This is my Galaxy Tab that I have here. And one of the arguments people are making is, well, Google doesn't want to ship this until it's a ready product. And, they had an experience in the past where tablet makers deployed Android before it was ready for tablets, and they didn't put out a good enough product. Yeah. Well, they're talking about the Samsung Galaxy Tab. That's the really only Android tablet
that's what they're talking about.
It's the two tablets the last year that shipped that really made any sales are the iPad at like around 11 million.
And the Galaxy Tab.
At around 2 million.
Yeah.
Or 4 million, depending on who you talk to. And here's the thing. This is a great tablet experience.
I really like it. It's a cool form factor.
I have no issues and no problems. There's a few apps that don't run quite full on here. Yeah. But there's actually some tools in the OS to fix that even. because most things in Android are SVG graphics that are buttons and things like that. They scale just fine up to a tablet. So while maybe it's not the ideal experience that Google wanted, it's not that bad of an experience. And I don't buy that as a reason why you wouldn't want to put an open source operating system out there. And to follow that up, people that are going to be using Honeycomb in its current stage from source code are not people that are going to go out and just load it as a new firmware on their Samsung tablet and have a bad experience. Those people don't have the means to do that.
Right.
So it's a straw man argument, in my opinion. It's totally a diversion.
It absolutely is. And the really exciting thing is we've got two very diverging things happening in the Android world right now. And on one hand, we have the Amazon Marketplace that we just talked about, the existence of which opens up the ability to have Android on anything and have a great, fully supported marketplace.
And not to mention a competitive marketplace.
A great one.
It's a really good competitor.
So I could sit down, say my Lenovo tablet. I love my Lenovo tablet. If I had the source to Honeycomb, to Android 3, I could work to make sure I implement drivers. And I could get it running because Android already runs on x86 processors to run it on that tablet, which is a great tablet with great battery life, an awesome multi-touch screen. It would be an amazing experience. I could then load it up with Amazon's Marketplace and have a full tablet experience that would rival that of anything out there. And yet Google says, no, that bothers me.
Well, here's the other issue.
That bothers me.
At the end of the day, it is their product, and it's their choice to make. I wish... I know we've railed on them a bit, and okay, people realize that we're sitting here. I've got 2 Android devices in my hands right now. I'm obviously an Android fan.
You're invested.
I'm invested, and that's why I'm a little upset. And it's not because I'm hating; it's because I like it and I want to keep using it. And what scares me to death, and this has been a theme we brought up a little bit last season, is these devices. These devices are the future. The PC that I custom built that is sitting right there, that's not the future. That's today. And those are going to continue to exist, but these handheld portable mobile devices are going to be are already so widespread they dwarf the install base of the PC market that we've had 30 years to build up. And these things come around in 5 years and blow that install base away. These aren't just the future, they're the present, and Linux is not in a particularly strong position here. No open source operating system is in a very strong position on this hardware. And this is why I'm really worried, because Android is sort of, well, I hoped it could be an option as a general operating system platform for these new devices. And you have to open source that to do it right, at least to give us open source and Linux users a viable option. To me, I am stopping short of saying Android is no longer a viable option for people who believe in the open source methodology. You can't run an Android 3.0 device right now and tell me it is not as absolutely locked down as an iPhone or an iPad. It is just absolutely the case. Not only that, but at CES, the Android tablets that we're shipping later this year were all running video displays of Honeycomb, not the actual operating system, because earlier in 2010, Google signed an exclusive agreement with Motorola that only allowed Motorola to see the source code of Honeycomb, so that way they could have the first exclusive Honeycomb integrated device. That also rubs me the really, really wrong way. How many open source contributions were bundled up in that only Motorola had the exclusive rights to for a little while? That's an abuse of the existing open source technology there, in my opinion.
Honestly, this would be a lot like, let's say, Ubuntu coming out and releasing a new version of Ubuntu, but the only people that can use it or see the code are Dell for 9 months.
Dell or System76 get exclusive rights.
They're the exclusive. And while I'm sure that would make them happy, it just doesn't make any sense. It flies in the face of the open source methodology, not just the spirit of it.
Not only that, but it's a genuine assertion of distrust in the open source ecosystem, because you're not trusting the open source methodology to help you build a better product.
This is Google saying that it being open source right now would hurt them.
And I just feel like...
because they already have the infrastructure in place to open source it. They've done it repeatedly over and over and over and over again. They've got Google Code. They've got all that set up. It's not an issue of how much time it would take. It's not an issue of resources. It's not an issue of how. It's not an issue of licensing. It's an issue of they don't want to, which bothers me. I mean, the reason it bothers me the most is because we already know Google is a marketing firm. What they do is marketing and advertising.
That's what I always come back to.
99.9% or whatever of their revenue.
I think the official number is 96%. And
I mean, that's crazy.
And it makes you feel like I just hope that it means that everything else is not just completely secondary to that main revenue generator.
Well, I'm sure everything is secondary because if you're making 96% off of advertising, everything has to be about increasing your advertising revenue.
No,
At
it
least,
doesn't.
Well, I mean, for Google, is about money. Google is not a technology company. They are an advertising broker. They don't do advertisements. They don't do graphic design. They hook up people who make advertisements with people who want to sell more advertisements. In this case, the people who are selling advertisements is them. They like to create a platform to allow them to sell additional advertisements. That was the whole point of Android. The whole point of Android was to have a mobile platform that was large, widespread, and allowed Google to present their advertising platform to users.
That's the deal we all agree with. Isn't that the secret deal we shake on? We say, okay, Google, you're going to advertise to us, but in exchange, you're going to give us a open source, general,
an open system
mobile platform.
Yes.
And I just thought that was the deal we had. And I honestly, I don't care what Google does as long as we have something like Migo as an option out there. I don't give an F if they lock it down forever, as long as there's something like Migo. But what I don't like is at the same time you bang that open source drum over and over again, and you get up on stage and you tell us how important open source is to Android, and then as soon as you ship the next freaking major version, you about face on what you said. I mean, you didn't even go from version 2 to 4. You went from version 2.2.3 to version 3.0.
Yeah.
or version 2.3 to version 3.0, and you completely about faced.
Completely.
I mean, it's disingenuous and it's frustrating.
It's concerning.
To put things in perspective, though, it doesn't sound like it is a massive, incredible effort to get the source code. Mashable has a really nice rational article written up. Mashable is Rashable, Brian, and they say that one of the important bits to take out of this is anyone in the Open Handset Alliance, which is quite a few companies, can get the source code for Android 3.0. Any person working with Android tablets can contact Google directly, sign a license agreement, there's no fee required, and then they can get the source code. Now, I'm betting that's not quite true. I'm betting I can't call up and say, hey, I'm Chris from Linux Action Show, and I have a Galaxy tab. I'd like to write Honeycomb stuff for it.
You know what? I'm going to find out.
Yeah? I mean, because here's the other aspect of it is why not let me get Honeycomb on here so I can at least start some early development testing?
All right,
maybe I don't have the capacity to join the Open Handset Alliance, and I just want to be an indie developer and make the next Angry Birds.
Let's put this to the test. Tomorrow I'll contact Google.
All right.
Let's see if we can get the code.
Let's do it. And then we'll come back on the show and we'll let people know.
I mean, if it turns out that the license agreement I have to sign says that I can't give that code away, okay, but at least then I can have access to the code to do something myself. Yeah. And we can come back and tell you guys what it is that the licensing is.
I think that'd be fun.
Let's do it.
And if it works out, tomorrow. That's great. And if it doesn't, then...
All right, so on Monday, I'm going to contact Google. That means that Google will have, I'll do it Monday morning, Google will have all week to provide at least information that will tell me when we might get code, how we might get code, what the licensing might be. That would be the other thing, right? Is how about instead of just saying, it's indefinite until we change our minds, how about saying, we're targeting for end of summer? Put some responsibility into it. Give us a date. Give us something to work with. Or if there's no date, tell us what it is you want to accomplish and that you aren't sure how long it'll take, but you want to accomplish it.
So right now, if I'm an indie developer, the only way to get my hands on Honeycomb to do some app development, because remember, they have very few Honeycomb specifically formatted applications. The only way I can do it is if I go out and buy an $800 Zoom with a data service contract.
Yep. Yeah. I would love to have my hands on Honeycomb so that I can play with it for Illumination and make sure that I fully support it.
Sure.
Because right now, there's devices out there. I don't want to go buy a Zoom right now.
Right. And
the only way to test on it is if I go buy a Zoom.
And the complaints over the SDK being so woefully slow with the emulator, I mean, you're just not going to want to do practical development in a scenario like that. But we'll see how this develops. We're curious to see what you think. I have a feeling most of you are not quite as riled up as we are about it, because it seems to be people really, really trust Google without question. And so when Google does something like this, they just take what Google says and they roll with it. And generally, the majority of the feedback we get is, you guys, I imagine it's going to go something along the extent of, it's their product, they can do what they want, they're going to release it when it's ready and in time, which of course completely flies in the face of everything else we just talked about, but I have a feeling that's what most people are going to think.
Yeah.
And I would just ask that before you grill us over it, because we often get railed when we talk about Google, go through it, think about it, and from those kind of aspects that we've touched on first. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, yeah. Now one of the other standpoints on this that I kind of think is interesting is, and this has actually been brought up in the chat room while we've been sitting here talking, is that the issue is there's no real alternative. Google Android has so much momentum now.
Right.
Just look, Amazon has an app store for it. A major firm like Amazon is saying, we believe in this platform so much that we're building an app store and an infrastructure around it. There's no alternative right now. Now, I love Mamo. I like Migo. I love those platforms, but they don't have any momentum. They have none. In fact, they have like negative momentum.
We keep hoping, we keep watching news stories like one we're going to cover in a bit. We're waiting for like the early snowball effect to start rolling.
And none of it's happened. We've waited for it to happen for years now. For several years. We thought it was going to happen right when the N810s came out. We're like, you know what? This is the cusp. They'll release some phones with this and we'll be good to go. Then they started to tank. Then the N900s came along, new Mamo. We're like, dude, this is it.
Refined.
Dude, this is it, man. They've got this cool new phone.
And
they're
going
to come out with a few more. It was going to be awesome. Then they killed it. Now, then Migo, we're like, okay, you know what? We're a little uncertain now, but Migo's going to happen. It's going to happen. No, it didn't. They just tanked it again. So now where are we at? Now, where are we at with a Linux alternative? The only alternatives are either someone comes along like Nokia, invests so heavily in an open platform that it takes off, and that Amazon and some other companies get behind it, which is hard to do and would take several years.
And in the meantime, you've got these economies being built around these two other platforms that will just take all of the air out of the room.
And the larger they get, the harder it will be to compete with them. Already, look at iPhones and iPads.
Yeah.
Now, the platform, honestly, meh. But there's so many apps. There's so many apps. And let's be honest, all of us think at least some of those apps are cool.
Yeah.
Because once you get 50 bajillion applications out there, there's going to be a few neat ones you want for any platform. Now,
and those neat ones, some of those neat ones, they take entire businesses being created over time to serve that platform. You know, there's entire companies now that make their living off of Android and iOS.
Exactly.
And it took them years to build that up.
Yes.
And when something else comes along, it like look at Windows 7 phone right now. It's got like what, 5,000 apps?
You mean Windows Phone 7 phone?
I mean, it is just struggling.
Let's get the name right.
It's struggling. It's struggling in its infancy, and this is from one of the most rich, powerful companies in America.
Yep.
And it's still struggling.
And it's struggling.
And so you worry when these grassroots operating systems come around, they're just not going to have the ammunition they're going to need.
So here's the other alternative. Here's the other way it goes.
All right.
Is someone takes Android 2.3 and forks.
I know. And it's...
How doable is that with the current Google license?
I don't know. It's an Apache license project, and so
if enough of it is all Apache licensed,
and I think that's how I'm able to run Cyanogen 7.
Yeah,
and I'm not running a Google OS on here. I'm running somebody's
version of it.
But that's gonna grow. I mean that whole device market is evolving at such a crazy pace. I mean, look at the tablets that like the Zoom compared to just something we had 2 years ago.
Yeah,
they're incredibly more powerful. I mean, this tab was leaped, and this tab is only 7-8 months older than the Zoom, and it's just been leaped. You know, dual cores and extremely improved 3D graphics and 4G chipsets. And all this stuff. It's big time. It's a very hard thing for 100% grassroots effort to stay up with. So it's
no, you're right.
It's a frustrating thing because it almost feels like history is repeating itself with Linux. We started with a semi-dominant position. A lot of these devices were running some sort of embedded Linux or running Android, which was much more open source friendly until this week. And now we feel like we're losing that foothold, and it's a damn shame.
Yeah,
that's what I have to say.
I've got a lot of stuff. I've got a lot of thoughts on the matter, but I'm going to leave it at that because we got a lot of other news to tackle. But we would love to hear your thoughts on this one. Definitely in the forums over at JupyterColony.com.
Yeah.
But seriously, just like Chris said, if you're going to get upset, breathe. Think about it for a second. Yeah. We're not going to say that we're 100% right and you're 100% wrong if you're all upset at us. Right. We're just saying, breathe first.
We're a little nervous is how I would put it. Now let's talk about something that is kind of interesting. It's another mobile platform that's up and coming, and that's the BlackBerry Playbook. Now this runs on QNX, so it's not exactly a Linux story, other than the fact that
QNX is POSIX compliant, though.
Well, yeah, it is definitely a cousin. Other than the fact that also they announced this week that the BlackBerry Playbook will be able to run Android applications.
Which is cool.
So you're going to have Java apps on here. You're going to have Air apps on here. You're going to have all kinds of stuff. And then they're later releasing a native SDK. I'm really curious to see where the playbook goes. The ability to run Android Market apps could be a big deal.
Dude, yeah, Flash and Flex, Air applications, Java apps, and Android apps. Come on. That's a lot of apps.
That is everything in a VM.
That's awesome.
Performance cannot, I mean,
battery life is going to be hard.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I mean,
but you know what? From every indication, this looks pretty cool.
It does look really cool.
It looks cool.
And supposedly QNX, before RIM bought them, supposedly, now I don't know how true this is, but Adobe and QNX work closely to offer APIs directly to the core of the operating system for accelerated VM playback, including Flash. So there's supposed to be some sort of hyper virtualization that can go on where the two operating systems can communicate, and we'll see. Maybe it'll... Demos actually look really great.
It looks smooth in the demos,
Yeah.
but then again, come on, those are video demos. We don't know. I mean, we've seen people touch it.
It's not a Linux box. It's a QNX box.
Yeah. It's not for me, but it's pretty cool looking.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes from there. All right, now let's talk about Migo, another mobile platform that's always on our radar, and it had an interesting development this week. The Linux Foundation announced that they're working with they're going to work with a group of people, including Nokia's in there, and Intel, and a couple other companies are in there to sort of develop a standard smart TV platform.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think like for those widgets on TVs and stuff where you can get news and information.
Yep.
What do you think, Brian?
Yeah. Oh no, hold on a second. There's a worm burrowing through the front of my brain.
I know.
So here's a thought that Brian had.
Okay, lay it on us, B-Man.
So you know how we've had Linux for a while?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, clear your mind. Imagine Linux.
Ooh.
A Linux distro, perhaps.
Okay.
Running on, let's say, a box or a television. Okay, think about that.
Okay.
Okay. Now think about some sort of magical, non-existent piece of software that handles, say, video playback, video streaming, and live video capture, etc.
GStreamer?
Obviously, it can exist. So let's call it a myth.
Okay,
it's a myth.
It doesn't
exist.
exist.
A myth.
Okay.
Let's call it Myth TV right now because obviously it doesn't exist.
Oh, I see where you're going.
What would be great is if we could get some powerful people together in the same room to create something.
Oh, no.
Let's just call it codename Myth TV.
All right, because it's mythical. This is ridiculous, isn't it?
This is the stupidest goddamned thing I have seen in a long damn time.
I think
despite the Windows Phone 7 phone love wagon, I still like Nokia. They do a lot of great Qt work. They've done a lot of great work on Maemo and Migo. They've done really cool stuff. I still like them despite all this. I like Intel. I love the Linux Foundation.
Yeah.
Those are my boys. They managed to get together.
That's good, right?
And do this.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Oh, why? How about this? You remember the Boxy Box?
Yes.
You know what OS does that run on? Probably
Linux.
Windows CE. Wait,
Nope,
what?
it's Linux.
Linux?
It's Linux.
Weird.
I know.
Well, the core software that is based on couldn't possibly be open source.
Well, there wasn't any big, huge companies that came together and made a press announcement, so I think you're probably right, Brian.
It's not open source. At the XBMC, the Xbox Media Center, Boxy, all that, there's no way any of that source code is already available and working awesomely.
Yeah, I know, right? You know,
Why is this? Why are people trying to reinvent the wheel? Not just when we have something working, but when we have something awesome working.
Why do we need Chrome OS when we have Linux netbooks? It's like these, like the OEMs out there, like the Samsungs and the Panasonics and the Pioneers of the world.
Yes.
It's like they have to have, the products that they use on their product has to be a name brand.
Yes.
And it has to be some sort of fancy name.
Why aren't they doing something really cool with their resources?
More Linux is good, though.
Now here's
Linux on
the thing.
TVs is good.
Here's the thing. There are great companies out there,
Yes,
small companies, big companies, that are taking Linux and open source tools and bundling them together and maybe adding in a little extra of their own special
Or their own
sauce to create
apps
something
or-
cool.
yeah,
It's like
sure.
it's like the B3 server, right? The B3 server, they didn't look at it and say, you know what, we got to develop this whole consortium to develop this brand new platform for
Right.
serving. They're like, no, you know what? all the tools are there.
Yeah,
let's pick and choose the best
Yeah.
and put a little extra special sauce in it, and here you go, we'll release it all.
There you
and
go.
it looks great and runs great, and it's revolutionary because it's a cool mix of a already existing functionality that's in the open source world that's already running on Linux and runs great. We do not need
that's a great point.
a smart TV working group. We just need some, if Intel wants to release a TV, release a damn TV running Linux, running XBMC or Myth TV or whatever you want to run.
How much would you love to buy that?
And pre-configure it. Put a couple of devs and testers on it for a few months, pre-configure it so it works just right, because, hell, we've done that. We've done that on this show over the years. We've pre-configured it to make it run great on our own home servers.
Yes.
We'll stick it in a TV, call it good. You don't need a working group. You don't need to reinvent everything from the ground up. Just do it. Just make it work.
You're right. And this smells of desperation to make MeeGo sound like it's still relevant. I'm not saying that it isn't, but I'm just saying that it sounds a little desperate to make it seem that way.
And you know what? MeeGo's fine.
Yeah.
It's okay. There's nothing wrong with MeeGo as a Linux distro. If so, you know what, Intel? If you want to make a TV, make a TV. Throw MeeGo on it. Throw XBMC on it. Pre-configure it and call it good. What do you
It's interesting though, because it sounds like they're planning.
You broke my mouth. You broke my mouth, Intel.
They're planning to make, like the ability for people to develop applications for it on your TV. So you'll have like maybe someday.
We've already got that. Though.
I know, but
they're gonna exist.
They're gonna use Qt for the apps.
We can already do that.
Okay. Also in here is
you don't have to customize Qt so that it works on a TV. You know what a TV is?
A display.
It's a monitor.
It's a monitor display.
You know what it has? A resolution. Yeah. You hook up a computer thing to it, and it shows you what's on it.
I know.
And you know what? You could have buttons and such. Chris, I kid you not.
So you're telling me that
buttons?
No, Brian.
Buttons. It doesn't change that much.
All right, I've got one more story before we get to our lightning news round. Are you ready? Because this one I think is just a milestone that is good to cover on the show.
Almighty.
What about this one? Now, this is an important milestone. It's good to have it covered on last.
Let's talk about something different.
Red Hat's fiscal.
I don't want to talk about Red Hat.
Dude, check this out.
All right, lay it on me.
Their fiscal year-end revenues came in. They hit $900 million with record bookings and billings in the fourth quarter. They nailed it out of the park. They had a great last quarter, and the president and chief executive officer Jim Whitehurst was speaking on the conference call. And he said that they're so close to becoming the first billion-dollar open source business.
So I have two takes on this.
Okay.
My first take is, that is awesome. Congratulations to Red Hat. Honestly, I love to see this sort of thing. I love to see
of revenue increase
during a
recession.
These are massive increases. That's monies right there. That is significant monies. I think that's fantastic. Regardless of whatever I think of Fedora as a distro, honestly, Red Hat is doing a great job here. They're obviously doing well from the business point of view, and it is proof in the pudding that a number of the different open source business models work, at least in this regard.
Yeah.
And so I think this is fantastic.
Yes.
Here's my other take on it.
Oh.
So we've already know that Red Hat's been, kind of changing how they handle their kernel patches.
You've had them sort of switch from actually supplying the patches to doing a big tarball
binary blob, basically.
Yeah, to try to, and they're totally upfront about it, which I respect. Now, this is honestly a move to get away from Oracle.
They came out and said specifically that the point of this is they want to make it harder for people to utilize their changes.
Well, I mean, no, because they still submit to upstream. It's just their end product. Right? I mean, that's fair. Because they're still...
But even the open source version of their end product, they're trying to package it in a way that's harder to use.
But they still submit the patches to the project.
It's there. They're submitting the patches.
Yeah. But I see what you're saying.
That's kind of lame. I know the point of it is to make it harder for Oracle to repackage a lot of the work that Fedora and Red Hat does. And it is funny that it's happening
when they're claiming $900 million
as an open source company
of revenues. Yeah.
So they're
increasing
like it's
fast.
Hurting them. They're not in a desperate spot, but they're trying to make it harder for other companies to do what they do. I'm not upset with them on that. That just kind of makes me cock my eyebrow and go, All right, Red Hat. You know, it's
We're
kind of
watching
weird.
you.
Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, what's
going on here,
Why
Red
do you
Hat?
think you're gonna do that for?
Yeah.
But seriously, honestly, the $900+ million, that's just awesome.
That is
That's
awesome.
awesome.
And
And you know what? I look forward to next year when we get to report Jupiter Broadcasting earning $900 million.
Yes, me too.
Talking mostly about open source. That would be fantastic.
That would be now that wasn't so much a lightning story, but the last story in our lightning round of the news docket is this. Steven Seagal raids a home in a tank and busts a man for cockfighting. Now, this isn't so much a Linux Action Show specific
Well,
story,
it's Steven Seagal.
but it's Steven Seagal busting a man for cockfighting, and he brought a tank. See, if you don't know us, there he is. Steven Seagal is a sheriff, an honorable sheriff, like a for a TV show. Yeah, an honor. That's what I'm looking for. An honorary sheriff, and he decided that for his TV show, he was going to go bust down a house, and they think it cost tens of thousands of dollars. I don't have anything more to say than that. I just think that's hilarious.
He was in a tank.
I think that's really funny, and so just want to put that in the news docket.
Not that we think cockfighting is funny, but
No.
Steven Seagal in a tank
funny.
busting through stuff, that's funny.
No, I mean, the name of cockfighting is kind of funny. I'll give it that. It's got a good name, but other than that, it's not so funny. You know what I mean? I do kind of like tenderized chicken too, but other than that, Brian, I'm glad that Steven Seagal is putting a stop to cockfighting. Right? Right, Ryan?
And that's all the news for this week.
Now, everyone, you know when you see these headphones on, you know it means we have an interview. And I'm excited because today's interview is someone that I know Brian's been following this company for, what, a year or so? 2 years?
Years.
Yeah. So we're excited because we've got the CEO of RevRev on, and welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet.
All right, so this is Kevin Miller. Kevin, why don't you give the quick little 2.5 second background, who you are, what your company does, the product they make, and then we'll go into it from there.
Sure thing. So I'm CEO of RevRev, and we make a development platform that makes it very easy for you to create applications that run on multiple platforms and multiple devices. The kind of core benefit of the platform is that it has this live development paradigm. It's called LiveCode, and the idea is that you can both edit what you're working on and see it run at the same time. So you get this very iterative development process whereby you go in, you make a change, you see the results of that change, and then you make another change, rather than having this traditional edit, run, debug cycle that most development tools have. So it makes it very quick to prototype. It makes it very quick to make sure that your solutions are really coming out exactly as you want. It makes it easier to find bugs on the software faster. It means you've got to think a little bit less.
Oh, that's always good. Sorry,
And on top of that, we've got a very high level, very English-like language. So it makes it really straightforward to learn, and then the code that you write is very readable. So you can come back months later and read your code base. And most developers spend more time reading code than they do writing it. So having a very readable language makes it very easy for you to maintain your code.
Now let's actually talk about that for a second. So so the history of LiveCode, it used to be called Runtime Revolution.
It did, yeah.
And now before that, this is kind of where my understanding of your history is a little murky. Now, is this kind of a branch of like Metacard, or is it just kind of similar to HyperCard? Like what's the lineage there?
Okay, so we're inspired by HyperCard, I would say, and we acquired Metacard. So
Okay.
Metacard was this independent software vendor that produced a HyperCard clone, and they originally produced that for Unix and Linux systems. And that then got ported across to Windows and across to the Mac, and it was around about that stage that we acquired it. But HyperCard is the original inspiration for this genre, this class of tools, and that dates right back to Bill Atkinson in 1997. And Metacard started in 1991, and we acquired them in 2003 and became Runtime Revolution back then. We rebranded the platform to LiveCode just last year, in fact, so really quite recently.
Okay. Very, very, very nice. All right, so now you guys, it really kind of started over on the Unix side. It's kind of been ported over to the Mac, to the Windows. What all platforms do you guys currently support, both in terms of building your apps on and running your apps for?
Okay, so we support the desktop platforms. We support Linux, Windows, and Mac for the desktop. We also support iOS, and we've got the first pre-release version for Android out there. We also support common popular web browsers through a browser plugin and server environments, particularly Linux and Mac servers.
Nice. It's kind of this is a bit of a near and dear topic to my heart. I like heavily cross-platform development tools. Non-cross-platform tools make me cranky. So like I've been following you guys' work for a long time. Obviously you guys do good work, which is why we're having you on the show. Otherwise we would just make fun of you because that's how we roll.
Yeah.
So why have LiveCode for Linux? I mean, obviously, we have our own personal reasons for that, but, so many people point to Linux as saying, commercial software cannot work for Linux, people aren't going to buy software on Linux. Why continue to invest in maintaining and even improving the Linux version of the IDE and the ability to build Linux apps for LiveCode for you guys?
Oh, I barely know even where to start. There are so many good reasons. I mean, if you take educators, a lot of those people have very limited budgets and like to run Linux. It's a good platform for learning. You take the development world, again, Linux is really heavily used over there and is probably gaining popularity, really rapidly relative to some of the platforms over there. But also for deployment, not just from the development perspective, but if you have an application that you've built on Mac and Windows, then it may well be that you want to deploy that to Linux as well. And we find that a lot of the companies that use our product really like this ability to write once and deploy anywhere, and Linux is a big part of that. I mean, it's a major desktop platform, so it's really important to us.
Now, do you guys, just out of curiosity, do you guys have a core set of distros that you guys personally like to use and support in-house? Or do you guys try and support just everything? Like, what's your goal there?
We try and support the latest, is what I would say. The most recent and up-to-date distros are the ones that we would tend to support, and there's a bunch of them that we use, the popular ones in-house, Ubuntu, and some of the others.
Okay, I have to ask, RPM or Debian?
RPM.
Ooh, that is a risky stance to take on the Linux Action Show, but I accept it because you guys do good work otherwise. All right,
I've got to say, I'm not a developer, so I think some of the guys upstairs would probably have quite a mixed take on all of that. They'd have a mixed take on the distributions and the whole show of it. So. Yeah.
Very, very, very cool.
Diplomatic answer, but it's quite true.
Oh, I understand.
Now, you guys, obviously, you guys keep coming out with new stuff. What was it? Just like a year ago, you made your first announcement that you were going to start supporting a lot of the mobile platforms. You guys were talking about Windows Mobile and iPhone and iPad and all those sort of things. Then there was the whole debacle with Apple about whether you could even make apps and get them into the App Store. That probably made your head explode a little bit. So all throughout that period, you guys have added a bunch of platforms and added a ton of new features. I have to ask, how big is your team? I mean, because it seems like you guys are adding in more stuff than the big boys are adding in lately. So it makes you kind of look at you guys, and it seems like you guys must have this massive engineering infrastructure going.
And there's 20 of us in total. And the key, I think, for a small company like ours is just that we have very, very talented developers that write really good code really quickly. So we're really small, but we've got really, really good output.
Nice,
that's awesome. I mean, it lets you be agile, so that's excellent. Now,
absolutely.
Now, if I'm a Linux desktop user, is there any is there a good area to start? What should I have on my system? Is there anything I need to know before I can just jump in and start using this?
You shouldn't need to know too much. I think you just need a recent distribution.
That's perfect for Chris.
That you're right up my alley there with that.
You just need a recent distribution. You should be able to download it. You should be able to install it and get going in the IDE, creating apps. It's really quite straightforward.
Very cool.
Now, this is kind of HyperCard inspired. A lot of people are going to look at that and say, well, how can you possibly create real professional looking applications in something like a HyperCard? I mean,
that's fair.
Come on.
That came to my mind, honestly.
HyperCard, HyperCard was awesome. We all loved HyperCard back in the day. It was neat. But then, Apple killed it off and eventually everyone started making fun of it because, the only thing you can do is make, reports for school or a Mist clone or something like that. And that's about all you can do. Or at least that's what people generally think. It got kind of a bad reputation, kind of like the Visual Basics and the whatnot of the world.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what do you say to the people that would say this is more of a toy than a professional tool?
Well, I think you've got to be really careful with HyperCard inspired. I don't think we would want our tool to get pigeonholed into this sort of category of just being like this, 1980s black and white application builder. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you think about it, the iPhone, you could also say it was probably, the Mac Classic probably inspired the iPhone if you go back far enough, or anything in Apple's history.
Well, that's fair. Neither really do multitasking, so that sounds about right.
Exactly. Wow.
Yeah, they both have desktop icons.
Yeah, so really your metaphor is totally apt.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying here.
We've come on a long way, is what I'm saying. We're a really modern tool. We've taken a lot of modern paradigms, like there's object-oriented features in the product. There's access to arrays, databases. I mean, just a whole raft of features that just weren't in HyperCard, both in terms of how you would actually design your applications and in terms of the feature set, as you would expect. So it's really come on a long way. HyperCard Inspired is really useful for people who remember their history and remember HyperCard to get an idea of the kind of tool we are. But in terms of the kind of modern feature sets and the capacity to do really up-to-date development, that doesn't really do it justice.
Fair enough. So, okay, so moving into the mobile side of things, you've just kind of rolled out the kind of pre-release of the Android support. And I've been playing around with it for a little bit here, and it's quite cool. And you've obviously got the iPhone and iPad support rocking, which to be able to build one app and have it deployed for both is quite cool. Now, in terms of Linux support, obviously you guys can't really do the building and running iPhone and iPad apps from Linux. I mean, you can kind of have you can kind of develop them, but you can't really use Xcode on a Mac and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's one of those things. We'd absolutely love to let you be able to develop iOS applications on any platform, but unfortunately Apple just don't allow it. You have to have the Apple developer tools installed, and there isn't, we've got some ideas about what we might do in that area, but I think Apple are quite cautious when it comes to licensing and restrictions. So it's not even so much a technical limitation, it's just something that they actually prohibit in their licensing agreement. So
it makes them angry, yeah.
Yeah, it does. So our very a couple of really smart guys upstairs told me that there would be a way around it, that they could do it, and technically we could allow people to develop their iOS apps on Linux, but we read the T&Cs and it was an absolute no-no from Apple's perspective.
Yeah. Don't run afoul of Apple, man.
Don't wake this. Yeah, absolutely.
They kill people, man. Yeah. I mean, they come after you with like an axe at night.
Oh wow, jeez, really? Probably.
Man. I don't know that for sure. I heard that from a guy. Just a guy told me that, so I don't know for sure. So don't kill me, Apple. So on the Android side of things, but how building apps for Android, can that be done on the Linux side of things?
It can. I'm not sure if it's in the first pre-release, but by the time we ship the actual shipping version of Android, absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. And basically, you just have to install the Android SDK, and you're good to go, kind of a deal.
That's right. Yeah, that's all you need.
Beauty. Beauty.
So that's exciting.
So now, kind of continuing to focus on that. So you can be on, in a Ubuntu or a Debian workstation or an OpenSUSE workstation or any of the other reasonable distros that aren't Fedora, and then you can. I don't like Fedora. And so then you can build your desktop apps. You can build your Linux desktop apps, your Android apps. Now, from the Linux desktop side of things, can you directly build, Windows apps and Mac apps and all that sort of thing, or do you need to hop over to the other platforms in order to build for them?
No, you can build for everything else. The only platform you can't build from Linux is the iOS platform, because that's restricted. Right. Everything else you can build from Linux just fine. And the thing is, if you're developing an iOS application and you're really desperate to do it from Linux, what we would say is that you could develop the application for Android and test it out on Android, and then when you're finished, you just need a Mac to do that final tweak and build at the very end, because the feature set's very similar. You should be able to take the same code base and the same application design and run it on iOS, and you don't really have that much extra work to do on that front at all.
Nice. So from you guys, is what you're seeing so far and the experience so far, does it seem like for the most part it's really just a little bit of tweaking for the resolution changes and that sort of thing? Is that about it?
That's the big one, and to be honest, there isn't a huge amount else. As much as the vendors of those platforms will tell you there are a lot of differences, I mean, there aren't all that many differences. I mean, there are accelerometers, they've got, a camera, they've got, smartphone features, multi-touch gestures, all of that kind of stuff. There's not a huge amount of difference between the platforms. Now, I mean, we're quite careful as a development tool not to just pander to the lowest common denominator, so we do let you use various platform-specific features on both platforms, and there are some.
Nice.
So, in those cases, you will want to go in and tweak your apps, and if that's something that you're really keen to use, then, you probably will want to have a Mac sitting there so that you can go over and tweak those aspects of it. But there's a lot of applications that just don't need that at all, simple multimedia and games and that kind of stuff, which, they don't need any of the native elements. They're basically about the content or the gameplay or the workflow or whatever, and those apps are really, you don't have to make very many changes to at all. The other big difference is screen resolutions. There's various ways to solve that, but if you write your app carefully, then you can write it so that it'll run in all the various different resolutions that it's likely to encounter. And we're working on some features.
If you're building an Android app anyway, there's so many different resolutions on every different Android device. You kind of have to plan for that from the start anyway.
It's a bit like the desktop, absolutely.
There you go.
Nice. So what do you guys have coming up? So I mean, obviously, when you first unveiled your kind of mobile strategy, there was talk of Windows Mobile. That was before Windows Phone 7 was announced, and took away a lot of your hard work probably. And iPhone and Android, and you guys were talking about Maemo, but that was before Nokia started killing off Maemo, which I thought was rather funny. We actually did some coverage back when you first announced it. We're like, cool, they're thinking about supporting Maemo. And then we started watching as one by one the industry started chipping away the platforms that you were trying to support, which was sad, but it was kind of funny. We laughed a little bit at your expense. It was horribly sad. I'm sorry,
but
man.
in like a understanding.
Yeah, we felt your pain, but we just wanted to buy you a beer and then laugh at you for a little bit. But
we were sad. I think that was the appropriate, appropriate response.
So, but do you have any plans to support any of the other platforms out there? I mean, obviously, we're not trying to get you to commit to any platforms and whatnot, but we're curious. With so many platforms you're already supporting.
Are you digging at Migo support?
Yeah, are you looking at Migo? You're looking at Symbian or what have you? Is there anything that you guys are eyeing right now?
There's a kind of branch of Linux that sort of loosely fits under Linux Mobile, and we're certainly looking at that because it's not very much extra effort for us just to take our Linux engine and make a few tweaks to do that.
Oh, okay.
The other one that we're looking at is Windows Phone 7. Haven't made a decision on that as yet. I mean, obviously it's our plan to support as many platforms and devices as possible, and there's two reasons that we haven't made a decision on that yet. The first is that it's technically very difficult to support at the moment because they don't have native code development kit. And on both Android and on iOS, native code was something that they added later. Both of those platform vendors didn't have that from the start either. So obviously Windows Phone 7 is a lot less mature, and I'm sure that as time goes by they're going to have to add that. So that problem will probably disappear. But I think the other question is just how's that platform going to do, and is it really going to succeed, or have Microsoft to some extent missed the boat? So we're going to watch it very closely over the next few months, and
sure.
If we've got something to announce, we'll certainly announce it when the time comes.
While I love your comments of Microsoft missing the boat, let's back up for just a second here. You mentioned a target that would be loosely defined as embedded Linux or an embedded Linux type of thing. What are you talking about, man?
Okay, so
you can't just drop those sorts of little things on the show. You can say no comment if you need to, but what are you talking about?
I can't say a huge amount about it. All I can say is that there are various versions of Linux that are suitable for embedded purposes that run on more than one processor architecture, and that we're looking at them. And I can't say more than that. I probably already said slightly more than I should.
Here's what you should do. Don't say anything. We're going to start listing things off. Don't say anything. Don't comment. Don't Twitch. Don't nothing.
Oh boy.
Let's just. Hey Chris, have you heard of Migo?
Migo?
Have you heard of Migo?
Oh, that was. Oh, okay. Migo, yes.
See, he made a frown. He did like a smile frown.
Yeah, that's a non-confirming smile frown.
That was a non-confirming smile frown.
That's a good poker face.
Yeah, he has a poker face. We'll just stop right there because there are some other ones we can jump down, but.
Well, if that was on the list, that'd probably be something I'd get excited about.
If it was on the list, I'd make a smile frowny poker face.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Right. Well, Kevin, while we got on the line, is there anything else you want to touch on while you're here?
Just that we've had a really great release of a new version of our product, version 4.6, 130 new features, 20 new iOS features, 10 new desktop features, and loads of little enhancements and refinements. And
wow, congrats.
Yeah,
it's a really nice release. I gotta commend you guys. Oh, question I should have for you. If I was a good interview, I'd have already asked this. So Android is in pre-release right now. Any indication of when that'll be kind of rolled into the main product?
Ooh.
We're not announcing a launch date yet, but it is quite soon. I mean, development on that is now happening very, very quickly. So
it's in a good shape. I mean, just to let everyone know, so I've been able to play with it for a little while now, and I mean, everybody knows I'm not exactly kind on things. So this is decent. I mean, it's not. I mean, obviously you guys have work left to do, but not that much. I mean, it's in really good shape.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So. All right, so let's talk about it from the commercial side of things. Obviously, it's a for pay product. What's the basic price point? So if you're a Linux developer and you're looking to get started in this, what are you looking to shell out of pocket just to kind of get rolling past the initial trial kind of period?
The absolute base price, the entry price is $99 to get started. And it goes on up there depending on the platforms that you want and whether you're a hobbyist developer or a commercial developer. But it starts at $99 to get going. So you could get a version for Linux there that deployed for Android, for example, for $99 if you wanted to create apps for your own use.
Nice, very, very nice. So let's say you're a commercial developer, but obviously you're just kind of getting started, and you're just kind of like a garage guy, and you're primarily interested in Linux and Android. What would be like the price point to get in for being able to deploy Linux apps and Android apps for these guys?
So Linux by itself comes in at $299, and Linux plus Android comes in at $499 for commercial development, and that includes complete royalty-free distribution of your apps.
Not bad. So you could spend $500 and be able to build commercial apps for those platforms, and then if all of a sudden you made $1 bajillion in the Android marketplace, you could upgrade to the iPhone version and sell it for the iPhone 2 to milk those suckers out of their money also.
Oh yeah. So I like what you're saying. You could do an incremental approach. You spend the money, make the money on one platform, and then when you've made the money to buy the next set, you release
so
the
you
next
buy
platform.
you buy for the platforms you want to support. That's kind of right?
That's exactly it. Yeah, it's another $200 for an extra desktop platform, another $300 for an extra mobile platform. So for commercial developers, with royalty-free distribution, and a lot less for beginners and hobbyists.
Very, very nice. Well, let's see. So, is there anything else that you'd like to touch on before we click the big red hang up button on you here?
I think we covered most of it. I'm really glad to hear that you had a look at the Android pre-release and thought it was going well. I mean, that's feedback we've been getting, but it's great to hear that.
Oh, it's quite well. I mean, it's like there's certain aspects of what you guys are doing that, like, personally I don't care about, like the web target, right? Like having a web target that runs in like a custom plugin and whatnot. I look at that and I'm like, I'm not that interested. But the other stuff you guys do interests me so much that I'm like, well, now I want to actually look at your guys' web target because maybe I'm missing something there. But like the fact that you guys are hitting the Android and the iPhone, looking at additional platforms, full Linux support for this many years now, and in fact being kind of a Unixy, Linuxy origin there for everything, it just gives you guys so many brownie points and kudos for us that it kind of like anything that I was originally going to write off about you guys. Well, then it kind of forces me to take a second look because you guys have got so much else going for you.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, the web
Brian stamp of approval.
That's great.
Which
it's
honestly,
really great to hear.
I would be clear about this, since technically, I spend a lot of my days building what some people might consider to be a competing product.
Yeah.
The fact that I'm saying anything nice at all hurts a little.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you guys do really good work. So you guys deserve success and kudos for sure. And oh, what was that?
Looks good. Your product looks good, by the way, Brian. I had a really quick look at it. So,
of course you did, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
Wait. Did I just hear Kevin Miller, CEO of Runtime Revolution, say that Illumination Software Creator is awesome? Is that what I heard?
I think so.
I had a quick look at it. Looked good. Yes, that's what I.
A quick look, but he likes what he sees.
Oh, he's being careful not to repeat exactly what I just said, because then I can use it as a quote. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I think so.
What was the quote that you didn't want to say?
I'm just coming back on your web point there. Just for the web plugin, switching back to that one.
Yeah, that's a fair topic change.
Just the aim with our web plugin is very much a vertical market. It's more, if you're developing apps, that's obviously horizontal. You're on a level playing field. It goes into the App Store. It gets distributed by Google or Apple or whoever. Yeah. But web plugin is really for corporate developers that are selling memberships or that kind of thing. Because obviously nobody wants to install a third-party plugin. So it's a slightly different angle. It just depends on the kinds of apps that you're trying to develop and who you are.
That actually makes sense. That makes a fair bit of sense. Our whole audience is generally averse to plugins that run stuff. Like like Flash, even Flash that's been around for 80 billion years. 80% of our audience is like, really, Flash, guys? You make us look at Flash,
even though they all have it.
Everyone has Flash installed, but they still gripe about it a little bit. So anytime someone talks about a plugin, everyone's like, oh boy, oh no, yeah. So I had to mention that. But honestly, great job, guys. And you guys are going to continue supporting Linux, am I right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no question.
That's what we like to hear.
Now, some big improvements on Linux coming later in the year as well.
Oh, awesome. Now, one final thing. You guys have dropped support for Solaris and HPUX and that sort of thing, right?
Oh, I'm out of here. Forget it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, honestly, I can't blame you. But I thought it was really cool. Like, over the last couple of years, the old version of your guys' tool, like back when it was still called Runtime Revolution, it would have checkboxes for HPUX and Solaris.
That is kind of badass,
yeah. I mean, it's hardcore. I mean, that's... like, literally, I looked at that and I'm like, I have no need for that, but that's awesome. Like, I wish I had a reason to...
Almost makes you want to set up a VM just to try it out.
I mean, honestly, that's on par with OS2 version 3 and AX and just having more and more checkboxes. I'm like, well, that's awesome, but there's absolutely no need. So I can't blame you guys for dropping it.
Yeah.
We've maintained support for those for years, but they're gone now.
They're gone. They're dead.
Yeah. Now we know it's quitting time where you're at, Kevin. So we won't keep you for too long. But.
Yeah, but thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. And again, if anyone wants to check them out, runrev.com, all one word, and it's there. That's a website.
There you have it.
You can check it out.
All right,
fantastic.
Kevin.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, we hope we talk to you soon.
And that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. Almost. We have a ton of stuff to talk about here real quick.
We do. Don't tune out yet.
We're gonna kind of blast through this because this is some pretty cool stuff. First off, Linux Fest Northwest is coming on April 30th and May 1st. It's a Saturday and Sunday. It's up in Bellingham, Washington, which is way up north, right next to the Canadian border, right next to, back bacon and weird kind of pudding in a can and all sorts of stuff. It's really great.
It's actually a really nice area of Washington, though.
It's gorgeous up there. And we're going to be there in a crazy big way.
Oh my gosh, the biggest thing we've ever done.
So we talked last week. We're like, hey, Linux Fest guys, get in contact with us. Well, the reason they hadn't gotten in contact with us is because they were working out the logistics.
They have. And they did get in contact with us.
And they've gotten in contact with us this last week. We've been working things through. We're going to have what is going to be called the Linux Action Room.
Yes.
And it is not just some little room.
No.
So if you've never been to Linux Fest, they have one big exhibit hall. You can kind of check out the map of it on their website. Or Chris can bring up the video version now.
Yeah, look at me go.
So you see there's a big exhibit hall, right? That's where all the booths are at, and that's where, like the OpenSUSE and Ubuntu and Google guys, they're all booths right there.
Yeah, buddy.
Do you see on the video version, there's that area called Lounge?
I do, Brian.
That's the Linux Action Room.
That is a really big spot.
Now, I don't think the entire room will be fully dedicated to us. They're going to probably have it partitioned off, but we can fit a ton of people in there, and we're going to be doing all sorts of fun stuff throughout the weekend. We're going to have a live on location episode of the Linux Action Show. Now we're going to have a number of sessions that we'll be providing over the course of the entire weekend.
We're doing stuff Saturday and Sunday. We're
going to be there the whole weekend, live streaming as much as possible, hopefully the entire time. If there's nothing going on, you can just watch people mingling.
Yeah.
It'll be great.
Yep, we're working on getting, so if you can't make it to Linux Fest in person to chat with us and hang out, we'll try to get you something you can tune a live stream. But if you can make it, we would love to have you there. So go check out linuxfestnorthwest.org. And I got links in the show notes, including the dates and time and all that.
And here's the thing. Linux Fest is free. It's a community-driven event. It's fantastic.
The thing I like about Linux Fest Northwest is it's the perfect nexus of sort of a chilled, laid-back Bellingham style with grassroots open source enthusiasts just getting together.
Yeah.
And it's everything open source, everything Linux. And we've got a lot of stuff planned for maybe bringing some people there virtually that you might like that can't maybe fly in. So there'll be some people there over the air, maybe.
Yeah, we're still working on that.
Yeah.
We're still working on the logistics, and we're hoping to bring in some mics, get some Q&A going.
Yeah.
That'll be great. But seriously, if you live anywhere in the Pacific Northwest region, it's worth it. It's a great weekend. It's a lot of fun. And here's the thing: Bellingham, Washington has some great brew pubs with some seriously tasty beers and burgers. And of course, we'll be there both Saturday and Sunday, which means we have to eat lunch both days.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to put that out there. You can put two and two together on that one.
I'm looking forward to seeing the regular crew that usually shows up at Linux Fest. That'll be fun.
That'll be a lot of fun.
And
So definitely join us there. It should be a ton of fun. Also worth noting, that is a Ubuntu launch weekend. So we're trying to figure that out. Maybe we'll have a special show that's just like an Ubuntu review show live. I don't know what we'll do there, but that's also the launch of the next version of Ubuntu. So that's pretty cool.
Which I have officially begun, by the way, my running of the beta phase. Yeah,
I'm
doing it. I've made the plunge to my primary machine now, so when it does launch, even if we don't get a review out that weekend, I'm going to be living it.
See, I'm running it full time on my Lenovo tablet, so I can play with the touchscreen.
I do not recommend it, at least not on my HP. It is very crashy still.
It's very crashy. But they've got a month.
Yeah,
they've got 1 month.
They do.
And honestly, they've had versions of Ubuntu in the past that have been much, much worse at this stage, and they've pulled off great releases.
I honestly think it might be just one single kernel driver.
That's what I was thinking too. I keep hitting crashes. I think it's the same crash.
Yes.
So if they can fix just like a couple of key bugs, I think we'll be all right. Anyway,
all right.
So we've got that coming up. That's pretty exciting. Now, on the April 10th show, which is 2 weeks from today, we're going to be having on Jeff Perlman, who's the CEO of Real Software.
Oh.
Since we had Kevin on the show today, talking about LiveCode, we thought, you know what? Let's throw a little lasso out there to some of the other development firms that make really cool Linux development tools.
So this week you've heard from one, and next
week you'll hear from a very different one. April 10th, we're going to be talking to Jeff live on the show.
Are we doing that one live?
It's going to be live.
Oh, cool!
And they're also going to be bringing along a couple of giveaways. So they're going to be giving away a couple of things here. I'm still waiting on exact confirmation on what they're giving away, but they're going to be giving away some copies of stuff, which is pretty cool.
Check that out. The B3 folks are doing a giveaway, and now Real Software folks are. And now
Real love out there.
Real Software isn't the makers of the Real video player; they're the makers of the development environment.
They make Real Studio, which used to be called Real Basic. We talked about them
long time ago.
I think like 2 years ago,
and we did an
3
in-depth
years
look
ago.
on it.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a cool tool. But what's really cool about it is if you make an open source project, it's free. Like you can get a free version of it for doing open source or free.
When they
tools.
launched their Linux version, we brought them on the show and said, "Why are you doing this?"
Yes.
And now it's going to be interesting a couple of years later.
That's what I want to know. I want to see how it's been doing, how they've been doing. Anyway, but they make a cool tool. They've been doing a lot of stuff. So let's bring them on. We're going to talk about them. If you guys have questions for them, go on over to jupitercolony.com. Throw your questions in there. You can create a new thread, put them in an existing one, but do it in there somewhere.
Yeah,
and we'll try and get those questions over to them so they can get all super grilled by us. Also heading over to facebook.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. That's a place on the internet. Twitter.com/Brian Lund Duke. Also, Chris LAS, whatever. Find us. You can find us on the Twitters. It's great.
That's probably the best place once Linux Fest hits to kind of keep up to what we're doing and stuff like that.
If you want to find it, we'll be tweeting.
That's the easiest thing to coordinate with people because you can do it from your phone. While you're on the go.
We'll be tweeting on the go. And also, of course, you can watch the live stream over at jblive.tv.
Yes, sir.
When Linux Fest hits. There is an IRC chat room there, and there is a live stream video. The plan is that will be running full time, not 24/7, but like from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. basically.
If the bandwidth gods allow it.
There's a window. Supposedly, we've got enough bandwidth.
And I'm going to bring, as an emergency backup, I'll bring my 4G Evo that has tethering. So
and I'm going to be bringing my Clearwire.
There we go.
Yeah,
okay, so we probably, between their facilities...
We'll have something.
I mean, it's a college, and they have pretty good bandwidth.
They have pretty good bandwidth.
We're not too worried about it.
So that should be pretty hot.
Yeah.
So that's going to be going on. And also, if you're going to be there, or even if you're not, go over to linuxfestnorthwest.org. Look through the sessions they've got.
Cool.
If there are any sessions there that are happening there that you're like, oh my gosh, either this presenter is amazing or that session's going to be stellar.
We'll try to get some coverage.
We can see if we can try and get coverage, or maybe
bring
get them into the room that they can be filmed. We're still working those details out with them.
Yeah,
so who knows what we can do.
Great request. Yeah, let's get Get the names. If you go over to Linux Fest, get the
No
names
guarantee.
of the folks you want to hear. And
No guarantee.
We'll try to maybe pull them into our room when they're not doing a presentation.
But we can try.
Get them on the
We
stream
can use a
and stuff
little
like
Linux action muscle, maybe make that work. Anyway,
be really cool.
So that's a lot of stuff going on. It's going to be a crazy, crazy couple of weeks. We've been teasing having a little Migo review on the N900.
Oh, yeah.
Haven't had time for it.
Right.
I've got Migo running on my N900.
Right.
It's running. How is it running? As a teaser. Maybe we'll talk about it next week, because I think next week's the only week we have down.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Because the week after we've got real software.
Yeah, let's do that.
The week after that we've got something else happening, and then the
Then
week
it's
after
Linux
that
Fest.
it's Linux Fest.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
let's maybe tentatively
We'll try
plan
that
for the Migo.
So theoretically, that is happening next week, unless something else happens.
And you know what? I just want to remind people, last bit of business, as you mentioned it earlier, is jblive.tv. 10 a.m. Pacific is when we do the Linux Action Show live, and it's a great way to get extra more of the show, because we start at 10 and we usually go to about noon. You know, the show's not that long. There's more show. Tune in live and check it out. Mo Show at jblive.tv at 10 a.m. Pacific.
Oh my gosh.
There you go, man.
That's Mo Show.
I think that just about wraps up this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. Right?
Yeah, that's. I can't think of anything else to say, unless you'd like to remind people to go buy Illumination Software Creator from RadicalBreeze.com.
Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad.
But that's all I can think of.
And also, I wanted to say thanks to those who have
I
contributed.
realized I'd gone all episode. I hadn't plugged my stuff.
And we're
How did I do that?
Well, I think, you know what, B-Man, you inspired me to remind the folks we're looking for advertisers. And if people would like to advertise on one of the shows on the network or all of the shows on the network, go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com/advertising or advertise. I forget which one. There's a link on the top of the page, and we'd love to hear from you.
Now, if you make something that's lame, don't contact us.
Yeah.
You got to be cool.
That's right. Yeah.
Like you got to be cool. Like you got to sell us on how cool your stuff is.
Wow, really? I mean,
No,
okay.
we would like your money. If you make on anything, if you take Twizzlers and you dip them in cinnamon, and you resell them as cinnamon actually, that sounds really good.
And maybe microwave them a little bit so they're kind of soft.
Yeah, soft, squishy cinnamon Twizzlers. You can make anything. We will advertise it on the show.
Yeah. There you go. If you do that, you just got a free advertisement. See how great that is?
Yeah, we did that for free for them. The Cinesoft Twizzler people.
Cinetwiz. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Linux Action Show, and we'll see you right back here next week.
I do miss meat wieners. All right, ready to go.
How are we doing over there? We got movement over there? It's pretty choppy over there.
It's just you. I like smooth. Frame rate high, frame rate low.
I don't need a high frame rate because I move like...
Hey, Chris.